Let's get right into it. Number 1, backwards eyes. Your retina is installed backwards. Not metaphorically, literally. The light-sensing cells, the entire reason your eye exists, are stuffed at the back of the retina, buried underneath a layer of blood vessels and nerve wiring. So every photon that enters your eye has to shove its way through a tangle of plumbing and cables before it hits anything that can actually detect it. Imagine buying a camera where the wires are glued across the front of the sensor. You'd return it. Evolution shipped it anyway. It gets better. All that wiring has to exit the eyeball somehow, so it punches a hole straight through the retina and bundles out the back as the optic nerve. That hole has no photoreceptors on it. It's a dead zone, a blank spot in your vision, roughly the size of 9 full moons stacked together, sitting there in both eyes right now. You don't notice it because your brain is running a cover-up. It takes the surrounding colors, textures, and patterns, and it just fills the hole in. Paints over it and guesses. You are not seeing the world. You are seeing your brain's editorial reconstruction of the world with a chunk of it professionally airbrushed. And the truly humiliating part? Octopuses got it right. Their photoreceptors face forward, wiring tucked neatly behind, no hole, no blind spot. They evolved eyes completely independently from us and landed on the better design on the first try. A squishy invertebrate with 3 hearts and no bones out-engineered the pinnacle of primate evolution. So the next time someone tells you the human eye is a miracle of design, remember, it's a miracle in the same way a house held together with duct tape is a miracle. It's standing. That's the whole compliment. Number 2, the long way around. There's a nerve in your neck that takes the scenic route, and the scenery is your chest. It's called the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Its job is to control your voice box. Your brain is up here. Your voice box is about 2 inches below your brain. A sensible engineer would run a 2-inch wire and go get lunch. Instead, this nerve leaves your skull, dives all the way down into your chest, loops underneath the big artery coming off your heart, then turns around and climbs all the way back up to your throat. A 2-inch job becomes a full round trip. For what? For nothing. Nothing happens down there. It just goes down, hooks around a pipe, and comes back. The reason is that you are a heavily renovated fish. In fish, this nerve runs straight. The gills and the heart sit right next to each other, and the wiring is short and sensible. Then some fish crawled onto land, necks got longer, hearts drifted down into the chest, and the nerve got dragged along for the ride because evolution can't reroute a cable. It can only stretch one. So it's stretched. For 400 million years, it just kept stretching. Which brings us to giraffes. Same nerve, same loop. Except a giraffe's neck is 6 feet long, so that nerve travels down the entire neck, hooks around the aorta, and climbs the entire neck back up. A 15-foot detour to deliver a signal that could have gone about an inch. There are dissection videos of this. Anatomists pull the thing out like a garden hose and stare at it. This is the design equivalent of running your kitchen's light switch wire out to the mailbox and back. And the mailbox isn't even connected to anything. It's just a nice mailbox that the wire likes to visit. Number 3, the death tube. Here's a fun structural decision. Your food and your air share a hallway. Everything you swallow and everything you breathe travels down the same tube, the pharynx, before splitting off at the last possible second into the esophagus or the trachea. Guarding that fork is a small flap called the epiglottis, which slaps shut over your airway every time you swallow. It's a trapdoor. Your entire ability to eat without dying rests on a piece of cartilage with the reaction time of a bouncer at 3 a.m. Miss the timing by a fraction of a second, laugh at the wrong moment, talk while chewing, be a toddler, and food goes down the wrong pipe. Sometimes you cough, sometimes you don't. Choking kills thousands of people a year, and it is not caused by disease, bad luck, or aging. It's caused by the floor plan. Whales, meanwhile, looked at this arrangement and opted out. Their nasal passage runs entirely separately to a blowhole, fully divorced from the throat. They can eat underwater without a coin flip on their own lives. Dolphins physically cannot choke on food. A dolphin has better airway architecture than you do, and a dolphin cannot open a jar. Why did we keep the bad version? Because the same low-slung larynx that makes you choke is also what lets you make a huge range of vowel sounds. Speech, language, poetry, podcasts. Evolution ran a trade, you get to talk, and in exchange, dinner gets to occasionally kill you. That's the deal. Nobody consulted you. You were walking around with a shared airway and a cartilage trapdoor because 200,000 years ago, some ancestor got so much value out of saying words that a lifetime risk of death by grape was considered acceptable overhead. Number 4. The appendix situation. You are carrying a small pouch of tissue near the junction of your small and large intestine, and for about a century, medicine's official position on it was, no idea, don't care, we'll cut it out if it acts up. The appendix is a dead-end tube, a cul-de-sac branching off your gut, a few inches long, sealed at one end. In your plant-eating ancestors, the larger version of this structure was a fermentation chamber, a little brewery for breaking down tough cellulose. Then diets changed, the chamber shrank, and what's left is a shriveled remnant that mostly sits there. Except it doesn't just sit there. It gets infected, it swells, fills with pressure, and if nobody opens you up in time, it ruptures and dumps bacteria throughout your abdominal cavity. Before modern surgery, this was a death sentence with no warning label. You were fine on Tuesday and gone by Friday, killed by an organ that was contributing almost nothing to the operation in the first place. Now, in fairness, there's been a partial acquittal. Recent work suggests the appendix acts as a safe house for your gut bacteria, a bunker where the good microbes hide out during a bout of severe diarrhea, then repopulate the intestine once the storm passes. Useful. Genuinely clever even. A biological backup drive. But look at the risk-reward here. You get a backup drive. The backup drive can explode. There is no light on it, no beep, no low battery warning, just a vague ache near your navel that could equally be gas, and then a hospital, and then a scar. Roughly 1 in 20 people will have this thing try to kill them. And here's the part that stings. You can have it removed and be completely fine. Millions of people have. They live full lives, digest food, fight infections, and never think about it again. That's the review. Optional feature, occasionally fatal, removal has no downside. Imagine a car with a spare tire that spontaneously catches fire in 5% of vehicles, and the manufacturer's response is, well, it is a spare tire. That's the appendix. It's not that it does nothing, it's that what it does isn't worth what it charges. Number 5, wisdom teeth. Somewhere around your late teens, your body decided you needed 4 more molars, and it did not check whether there was anywhere to put them. Your ancestors chewed raw roots, tough meat, and gritty plants for hours a day. That workload built big, broad jaws, and work teeth down fast, so a fresh set arriving in adulthood was a genuine upgrade, replacement parts for a mouth that had been grinding sand for 2 decades. The jaw had room, the teeth had a purpose. The system worked. Then we invented cooking. Soft food, less chewing, less jaw growth during development, and the jaw quietly shrank. The instructions for 4 extra molars, though, those never got the memo. So the teeth still come, right on schedule, into a mouth that now has the square footage of a studio apartment and the ambitions of a warehouse. What follows is a slow-motion pileup. They come in sideways, they come in upside down. They ram into the roots of the molar next door like a car trying to parallel park through a wall. Sometimes they never surface at all and just sit in the bone, impacted, forming cysts. Sometimes they punch halfway through the gum, leaving a permanent flap of tissue that traps food and turns into an infection farm. Before dentistry, an impacted wisdom tooth could abscess, spread to the jawbone, and kill you over a tooth you never needed. So the modern solution is that a stranger straps you into a chair, knocks you unconscious, breaks your jawbone open, and extracts a fully functional body part with pliers. Routinely. This is considered a normal rite of passage. Millions of people a year. There's a whole genre of video of people crying about ceiling fans afterward. The mouth is one of the only places where your body still runs the old blueprint against the new dimensions and just sends it. No measurement, no confirmation. It's a factory stamping out parts for a model that got discontinued 10,000 years ago and shipping them to your face anyway. Number 6, goosebumps. Right now, buried at the base of every hair on your body, there's a tiny muscle called the erector pili. It has one function: yank the hair upright. And when a few million of them do it at once, your skin puckers into little bumps and you get the sensation of your hair standing on end. For a furry animal, this is a real feature with 2 real uses. Cold, fluff up the coat, trap a layer of warm air, instant insulation. Threatened, fluff up everything, double your apparent size, and hope the predator recalculates. You've seen a cat do this, the cat becomes a Halloween decoration, and it works. You are not furry. You have roughly the fine peach fuzz of a tennis ball. So when your erector pili muscles fire, they lift hairs that are too short and too sparse to trap air or intimidate anything. The insulation gained is functionally zero. The size gained is zero. What you get instead is a texture. Your body's ancient threat display has been reduced to a cosmetic surface effect. The goosebump is a vestigial performance, a muscle contraction acting out a play for an audience that left 2 million years ago. And then it gets weird because goosebumps didn't stay in their lane. They fire during cold, sure, but they also fire during a key change in a song. During a good movie scene, when someone says something that lands. When you're moved. Think about that chain of events. A hunting reflex for surviving winters and scaring off wolves is now being triggered by a cello. The system meant to keep you alive on a freezing savanna is going off because a chord resolved nicely. Your body is trying to intimidate a saxophone. That's the glitch in its purest form. A mechanism so old and so hardwired that evolution never bothered to remove it, just quietly repurposed as an emotional side effect. You don't get warmer, you don't get bigger, you just get to feel something. And your skin files a report about it. Number 7, the spine was not ready. Your spine was designed, and I use that word generously, son, for an animal walking on 4 legs. It's an arch, a horizontal bridge with the guts slung underneath it, weight distributed along its length, load spread across 4 support columns. It's a good bridge for a cow. Then, roughly 4 million years ago, an ancestor stood up. And evolution, faced with the problem of turning a horizontal bridge into a vertical column, did not redesign anything. It just tilted the bridge 90 degrees and added some curves to stop it from folding. Your spine now has an S shape not because that's strong, but because it's the compromise that keeps your head over your hips instead of out front like a gargoyle. The consequences are stacked between every vertebra. The discs, soft jelly-filled cushions that were built to be pressed between segments of a horizontal arch, are now bearing your entire body weight as a downward crush. All day, every day. They squeeze, they flatten, they bulge sideways. And when one bulges far enough to press on a nerve root, you get a herniated disc, which is your body's way of saying that a jelly donut just leaked onto your electrical wiring. The stats on this are absurd. Roughly 80% of people will experience significant back pain. It's one of the leading causes of disability on Earth, not a disease, not an infection. A structural fault, universal, affecting the overwhelming majority of the species, caused entirely by the decision to stand up and never do the paperwork. And the fix is what? Stretching, chairs with lumbar support, standing desks, physical therapy. An entire multi-billion-dollar industry exists purely to manage the fallout of a renovation that was never signed off by anyone. 4-legged animals almost never herniate discs. They kept the original blueprint and it works fine. You gave up a functional spine so your hands would be free to carry things. Congratulations, you can hold a coffee and your lower back will send you the invoice for the next 50 years. Number 8, the vitamin you forgot how to make. Almost every animal on this planet manufactures its own vitamin C. Dogs do it, cats do it, cows, rats, lizards. They just make it in the liver, on demand, whenever they need some. It's 4 enzymes in a row, a simple assembly line, converting glucose into ascorbic acid. Cheap, automatic, free. You have 3 of those 4 enzymes. The 4th one, the last step, the final bolt on the assembly line, is broken. The gene is still in your DNA, sitting there, spelled wrong. It's called a pseudogene, a corpse of a working gene, kept on file for no reason. The instructions are in you right now, they just don't run. The break happened around 60 million years ago in a primate ancestor who lived in trees and ate fruit constantly. When your diet is a non-stop conveyor belt of vitamin C, losing the ability to make it costs you nothing. The mutation didn't get filtered out because there was nothing to filter. The environment was doing the job for free. Evolution doesn't reward good design, it only punishes bad design that matters at that moment. Then your descendants climbed down, walked out of the fruit zone, and eventually got into boats. And so for centuries, sailors died of scurvy, their gums swelled and bled. Old wounds, scars from decades earlier, either spontaneously reopened because collagen needs vitamin C to hold together, and without it, your body literally begins to come apart at the seams. Teeth fell out, legs bruised black. It killed more sailors than storms in combat combined. Estimates put the death toll in the millions. Millions of people died over the course of human history because of a single broken enzyme that a rat has and you don't. Not a plague, not a war. A typo, 60 million years old, in a gene you're still carrying around that only became lethal the moment your ancestors ran out of oranges. Number 9, hiccups. Nobody knows exactly why you hiccup, which is already a bad sign for a thing your body does uninvited. The mechanics are clear enough. Your diaphragm spasms, sucking in a sudden gulp of air, and then about 35 milliseconds later, your glottis slams shut, cutting the breath off mid-inhale. That's the hic. It's a breath that gets started and immediately arrested. It accomplishes nothing. It moves no air. It has no benefit to your respiration, your digestion, or anything else. A hiccup is a motor pattern with no output. So where did it come from? The leading explanation looks at tadpoles. Tadpoles have both gills and primitive lungs, and when they push water over their gills, they need to seal off the lungs so water doesn't get in. The motor pattern for that is sharp contraction, then immediately slam the glottis shut. That is muscle for muscle and millisecond for millisecond, a hiccup. The circuit that runs it lives in your brainstem, the oldest, most fossilized part of your nervous system, the part that runs the stuff too important to think about. And because it's buried down there in the ancient hardware, it never got deleted. It just got orphaned. The gills are gone, the command is still installed, which means every time you hiccup, you are running a subroutine written for an amphibian that was worried about drowning. There's no water, there are no gills, your brainstem doesn't know that. And the cures? There are no cures. There's folklore. Hold your breath. Drink water upside down. Have someone scare you. Doctors, actual physicians, will tell you to try these because medicine has nothing better. The best supported interventions are all just ways of poking the vagus nerve until the circuit resets, which is the biological equivalent of hitting the side of the TV. You are a creature that can sequence its own genome, land probes on comets, and split the atom. And you cannot reliably stop your own diaphragm from doing a tadpole impression in a restaurant. Number 10, being born. Here's the one that should have ended the whole experiment. Standing upright narrowed the pelvis. You can't have a wide, sprawling hip structure and also walk efficiently on two legs, so the birth canal got squeezed into a tight, twisting tunnel. Meanwhile, the brain went to the other direction. It ballooned, tripled in size, so evolution ended up with a species whose heads were getting bigger and whose exits were getting smaller on a collision course for 2 million years. The compromise it landed on is grim. Babies get evicted early. Human infants are born radically underdeveloped. Soft skull plates that haven't fused, a brain that will do most of its growing outside the body, and a body that can do essentially nothing. A foal stands and runs within hours. A human takes a year to walk and needs constant supervision for a decade so it doesn't eat a battery. And even with the early eviction, it barely works. Human birth is uniquely dangerous. The baby has to rotate, turn its head sideways to clear the inlet, then rotate again to clear the outlet, a maneuver no other primate performs. Chimps give birth alone in about half an hour. Humans need help. Midwifery isn't a cultural add-on, it's structural. We built an entire profession to patch a design flaw. Before modern medicine, roughly 1 to 2% of births killed the mother, and with several births per woman, the lifetime risk stacked toward 1 in 20, 1 in 10 in some populations. That is the most fundamental function a species has, making more of itself, running at a fatality rate that would shut down any factory on Earth. Every single person you have ever met got through that. Every ancestor in your entire line, unbroken back to the first mammals, cleared a gauntlet that evolution never bothered to fix, because just barely survivable is, and always has been, a passing grade. That's the whole story of your body. Nothing was designed. Everything was inherited, patched and shipped broken, kept only because it failed slowly enough to reproduce first. You're not a masterpiece. You're a fish that stood up, forgot how to make vitamin C, and started narrating videos about it. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.